Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons, or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes who grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we have got a classic. Following the Carny code, we've got what would be described as a classic Simpsons episode with an excellent guest star. But today, as always, before we get to that, let me introduce you to your co-host with the most, Richie the Whiz Kid. How you doing today, Rich?
I've been looking forward to talking about this one, and it's been really, really funny because we've had to shuffle our schedules around a little bit this week. Every day I've been okay, we're going to talk about it today, or this is going to happen here, or somebody's going to be in the background with bronchitis right when we start talking. So there's been a lot of things where I've been I want to talk about this one because yeah, you're right, man. This is a lot of fun, and I remember this one always being a lot of fun. So I'm ready to talk about this. You're ready to talk about this. Other people in the background are ready to talk about this. So I'll go ahead and throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the tooth chipper himself. It is Miles.
I definitely want to talk about the tooth chipper.
Ow, my heart!
When we get there. I have a lot to be grateful for this episode. I remember it fondly. It has lots of laughs. It has Ernest. And it taught me the method of how to get my first house. Squatter's rights. So it's been really good. We are talking about Bart Carny today, which originally aired on January 11th, 1998. I was about to say it's our first episode of the new year, but I forgot. We skipped All Singing, All Dancing so we can record that one together, making the singing a lot easier. So this is the second episode of 1998, and the right off the bat, the title, Bart Carny, is actually a reference to the Oscar winner Art Carney, who first gained fame as Jackie Gleason's sidekick in the Honeymooners skits.
Ooh, a little bit of intrigue.
Unfortunately, my DVD is still scratched. I just need to replace my season 9 DVD, so I had to watch this in the 4:3 aspect ratio, the 16:9 aspect ratio at Disney Plus offers, as well as no director's commentary, which I would have really loved to see, because my first thought was maybe they would have had Jim Varney on the commentary. But then I learned that Jim Varney passed away in the year 2000, which is before these commentaries were recorded. So that wouldn't have happened regardless, but it still would have been neat to have commentary talking about them working with Jim Varney.
Yeah, that means he only lived 2 years after this episode aired, too, then.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. He died in February of 2000 from lung cancer. And that is almost exact. It's 2 years and 1 month after this episode aired. So that's very sad that this is among his last performances.
Yeah. Aw.
Actually, on that note, did you ever think that the title of this one was a reference to Jim Varney?
Bart Carney, Jim Varney. Yeah, I guess you could say that, but as a kid, no.
See, I was going to say, as a kid, that's actually what I thought. I remember, or more as a teenager, that's what I thought about this episode. Because I had no idea who Art Carney was.
I honestly, for somebody who's usually pretty decent with actors and roles, I could never remember Ernest's actual name.
Well, that's because he's Ernest.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's just how that goes. And, I think people our age, people that, people that probably grew up with The Simpsons also probably grew up with Ernest movies. I mean, that was a staple whenever we would have sleepovers and whatnot. You'd always, especially since there was one for every season. If it was Halloween, you got Ernest Scared Stupid. You've got the Christmas one.
I mean, sometimes he even goes to jail.
Actually, I think that one might have been my favorite one when I was a kid. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, we do start this episode out without a chalk gag, but we get one of my favorite couch gags. We actually get Nelson pulling the couch out from under the Simpsons as they sit down, and of course, that comes complete with the classic, ha ha.
Which is not the funniest ha we get in this one.
That's true. But it is a really funny couch gag, and just the idea of Nelson being in the Simpsons' home for whatever reason also makes me laugh.
Whipping cupcakes.
The beginning of this episode is honestly all too real to me because my yard often looks in bad shape because I hate doing lawn work, but it must be done occasionally, and I don't have kids. But we actually see that Marge is frustrated that Santa's little helper will not go into the yard to do his business. So Homer suggests that Marge. Well, Homer says this: the experts say that if you want an animal to do something, you should do it yourself first to show them how.
I'm not going to the bathroom in the backyard.
Ooh, sorry, Your Majesty.
I mean, it's a bit easier for Homer than it is for Marge, so.
That's a good point. And also more relatable because of the methodology of peeing for this, genders or whatever.
I mean, I almost said red tooth. I don't know. What American hasn't peed in their backyard before?
Right? I mean, real Americans pee in their front yard,
red-blooded.
too.
There we go.
Red-blooded Americans. That's it. But yeah, Marge actually walks into the backyard, presumably not to pee, just to kind of investigate, but she's immediately disgusted with the condition that the yard is in. For one, she grabs a snake left over from beating day or whatever it is.
I actually put, if whacking day was still a thing, Homer would have had that snake taken care of easy.
Yeah, that's true. He could handle one snake, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she's walking through the yard and finding all sorts of stuff that's in the yard that shouldn't be there. And she actually, at that point, though, when she throws the snake over the fence, she hears Ned scream quite femininely.
Ah!
Ned, I'm so sorry.
Oh, no problem, Marge. Oh.
Seems like that snake may have gotten the best of Ned.
She threw it right on him.
But back in the living room of the Simpsons home, you might see a reason that the yard work hasn't been done. The laziness of the Simpsons kids is actually quite impressive. They are actually complaining and arguing with one another over who should have to change the television channel. Basically saying things like, I changed it last time.
I changed it yesterday.
Yeah. When Marge walks in, they immediately are like, hey, it's allowance time, and they keep ding-dinging at her, yeah.
But the best part is when Homer runs by going, ice cream truck, ice cream truck!
Ding, ding, ding! Marge, though, is absolutely not. The backyard is a disgrace, and if you don't do your chores, you're not getting your allowance. Now get busy.
That's a good suggestion, Mom.
We'll take it under advisement.
And then all of a sudden they're dressed.
Yeah, Marge is clearly not having it, and she has them in very odd gardening clothes. They're in overalls, and they have the little straw hats. It's very silly that they would have special yard work clothes of this variety. For me, yard work clothes was just something shitty that I didn't care about that could get washed.
But most importantly, Bart's, which is the bigger one, has this giant sunflower on it, which this gardening clothes is too small to be an adult one, but it's too big to be like Lisa's. So I don't know why they have one specifically for Bart that looks like it's more geared towards girls.
Well, and Bart is immediately I cannot go out and be seen like this. And Marge is, of course, who's gonna see you in our backyard? But sure enough, the moment Bart walks outside,
ha! He closes the door real quick.
Yeah, it cuts it off.
But then he opens it back up, and you get the other. It gets so perfect.
It's got kind of that thing in Ace Ventura where Jim Carrey is demonstrating the door closing and opening by screaming. I don't know if anybody actually has seen Ace Ventura in a long ass time, but that used to be a great movie. Laces out.
Everyone knows that.
Everybody knows, but. At one point, Marge actually is bringing some lemonade to the kids in the backyard, but immediately discovers that they're not there, because when she's like, kids, I made some lemonade for you, from the living room off screen, we can hear the kids announce, that sounds great, bring it in here.
What are you doing in here?
Work was hard, so we quit.
What?
Hard work made us quit.
I see. Well, then no chores, no allowance.
Meh, okay. We get our room and board free anyways.
And Santa Claus provides the rest.
Marge is not happy about this at all. But then as soon as this exchange goes down, Bart and Lisa see the carnival is coming into town. I think they do hear it too. There's music. So they rush to the music and they're like, oh no, now we need money for this.
Well. Looks like somebody's going to have to do some...
But then Homer rushes in screaming, it's carnival time! Here's some money, kids. Take what you need.
But the best part is, when they all get the money out of his wallet, all three of them start running out the door going, ding, 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 ding. Like Homer's super excited, which makes it just so much better.
And so much worse for Marge.
So that storyline's already closed.
Well, and they actually do head off to the carnival as a family, but immediately they're all wanting to do different things. Like Homer's like, ooh, I want to see Lobster Boy and Shrimp Girl.
I want some fried sugar.
And then the best yet, Bart's like, I want to go do the virtual yard work simulator.
But when I ask you to do yard work,
and
that part gets me every time.
It's such a perfect joke, and it's honestly very true. Like, I swear you see some of the most boring, like, virtual reality games and arcade games where it's like, why would you do that? But, like, it makes it fun. We're gamers, we get it. But, like, I hate cooking, but I love playing Overcooked.
I would never want to farm, but I love Harvest Moon.
Yeah, there you go. So, they actually see that maybe the main attraction at this carnival is a roller coaster known as the Tooth Chipper. And if you're wondering why it's called that, we see a bunch of kids riding it, and every few feet it slams on the brake, causing their faces to go into the, like, protective bar. But I do want to point out, when we're watching this first sequence with the kids riding it, like, the bar is, like, several feet away from their lap, and, like, that way their face will, like, perfectly slam into the bar each time. But then when the Simpsons ride it here in a moment, the, like, lap bar is actually put into place correctly.
Well, I mean, it's not going to hit their teeth. It can't for Homer. He's too tall and too big, so.
Well, and also he has a heart condition.
Ooh, me first. Homer wants to ride that.
But like I said, Marge points out you can't because you have a heart condition.
Heart condition? Get out of here.
You had a quadruple bypass. You nearly died. Don't you remember?
Obviously, I don't. Now, if you'll get out of my way...
I like that that's actually one of at least 2 different callbacks to previous episodes that we get in this episode. I always enjoy whenever they do those types of things.
It's all, and they've been doing that ever since. I mean, I guess Mike and Al probably threw some stuff in there, but they were still building the characters. But definitely with Josh and Bill when they took over, as we've talked about numerous times, they do that a lot. But I'm glad to see Mike Scully keeping the tradition alive and going.
Yeah, very much so. It definitely seems like Scully is kind of taking what Josh and Bill kind of did with, they kind of like steered the ship a little bit, and it seems like Mike Scully is going in that direction still so far. Mm. We see here, though, too, that while Marge is skeptical of the carnival workers, Homer has a weird admiration and respect for carnies. Like, he even, like, kind of goes off at Marge, who referred to him as some guy. He's like, Marge, he's not just some guy. He's a carny, part of a noble tradition. Carnies built this country, the carnival part of it, anyway. And though they may be rat-like in appearance, they are truly kings among men.
And if you look at the guy's face, they drew him to look like a rat. Like, his nose and everything, he looks like a rat.
Very much so. And we also basically go into a sequence here where several carnies are less than honest about their practices and you know, how they run their business. Because almost immediately after hearing how honorable carnies are, a carny tricks Bart and Lisa into paying to go on the Screamatorium, which is one of the shittiest haunted house carnival rides you may ever see.
But that's after you see them all get on that ride, after Homer's speech, and then you see him in the background go up there, and then it pans away, and that's when you hear the roller coaster go and stop, and Homer go, "Ow, my heart!"
Yeah, you're totally right. I forgot to bring that up.
One
but yeah,
of my
so
favorite bits.
The carny lets Homer on despite having a heart condition and being too big for the like lap bar. And yeah, ow, my heart. So there's that carny. Then there's the Screamatorium carny, and this is, like I said, it's such a like hokey, cheesy POS like haunted house. Some of the like things that are cheesy to begin with aren't even there. There's just like a random old woman talking about like how terrifying the like effects of age are.
But behold the ravages of old age, or whatever she said.
And then there's actually a maintenance man, like repairing like one of the features, and he just says "boo" or something like that.
But at least the Simpsons stand their ground when they get out there because they look pissed.
Yeah, but they still lost their money. They're not getting a refund.
Yep. I mean, they're Carnies. It's not going to happen. Miles, did this episode make you respect Carnies more after you saw it the first time?
Respect Carnies more?
Oh,
I told
yeah.
you they taught me how to purchase my first house, so hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all my friends had a weird, we would take those class trips to go to, the Renaissance Fair and things like that. So everyone, I don't remember, we had a 3-hour drive to get out there or something like that. Maybe it was just in kid time. It seemed a lot longer than it actually was when it was just an hour. But I remember kids always talking about this episode and being like, being a carny would be cool. But that lasted for a whole 2 days.
Until you would realize how grueling of a lifestyle that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always bring it back to wrestling, and wrestling actually has origins in the carnival circuit, which is, it used to be a more of a traveling thing than it is now. Now everything's more centralized around WWE, but it used to have the territories, and they would actually have promoters that would take their ring around their various territories and put on the same show for weeks at a time because it was pre-internet. So, if you saw something in I don't know, San Antonio, you likely weren't going to be the same crowd that would see it in Dallas.
Mm-hmm. Because they were kings among men.
They really were, Richie. They really were. That's wrestling. I also really like this bit we see a carnival game where kids are squirting. It's the one where you squirt water guns to fill up the balloon, and in this case they were shooting it directly into a clown's mouth. And you see Krusty getting sprayed with this water gun.
Why does this always happen when I stand here? What is it about this exact spot? Whoa. It's happening again.
So we also now see that they're in the section where there's the other carnival games, including the ring toss, where we see a man by the name of Cooter and his son Spud, who are trying to round up some pigeons who they can take to the ringer with their ring toss game.
And to be fair, it's Cooter, Cooder, not all those dirty-minded people.
Cooter, yeah.
Oh, listen, pal. I got a son of my own. Here.
So the script here jumped way ahead, but basically,
yes, it did,
Cooter
Miles.
and Spud. That was a great.
Here, I'll give you a reward for recognizing this mischievous script blunder.
A novelty comb. Kings among men. But yeah, this is actually after when Bart and Homer first walk up, the Spud, the kid, is trying to taunt them to come along by saying don't you want your dad to win you this TV? And you see this really old, from the 1950s early model, and it even has a sign on it that the brand new sensation that's sweeping the nation, or something of that nation. Something of that notion. Nation notion.
You're doing a spot for a new ad, Miles, for a 1950s TV.
But yeah, Homer, of course, is way gung-ho about this, but he has absolutely no luck every time the ring goes flying off the block that he's supposed to land it around.
He's got some good aim, like he always has.
Yeah, he's actually doing really well. It seems like they should be landing, and something's just not quite right. But like I said, the Carny code stands up because this guy gives him a giant, oversized comb as a consolation prize.
What I don't get is I thought Homer was only supposed to have 3 tosses, but he tossed a lot of times. So I don't know if he was just throwing money on the table, and so
he
they
probably threw more than $1 because I think it was 3 tosses for $1.
Dang, good old carnival prices from back in the day.
I was about to say now it'd be $5 a ring or something like that. Yeah. And then finally we see the main attraction, according to Colonel Tex, the owner of the carnival. They actually have Hitler's limousine. And, Colonel Tex is quite the showman, so he's talking about how some say that Hitler's skeleton is still in the trunk. Others say it's just a spare tire. I'm a busy man, so I haven't checked yet.
Oh my gosh. And he's starting to look like Rich Texan. He's got more gray hair in this episode, in which Rich Texan will eventually have white hair and different facial features slightly, but this is a very early on Rich Texan.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, though, anytime there's an opportunity for mischief, Bart is going to take it. So he actually gets into Hitler's car and starts driving it down the ramp and yelling, "Get out of my way, I'm Hitler."
He says, "Where's the flamethrower on that?" And I was like, "Why would Bart?
Yeah.
Oh no."
Oh man, and the Texan comes up and he's like, "You wrecked Hitler's car. What did he ever do to you?" That's awful. And that actually brings us to the end of our first act, but we open up with Colonel Tex demanding that Bart covers the cost of the damages he caused.
Did they have the camel walk by before the end of the act one? Where he's like, "That's my main attraction," and then the camel with the hat walked around in the background going, "Hey,
I thought I was your main attraction."
Yeah, because I don't see it in the script, but they do like an immediate callback where Marge and Lisa walk up and are like, "We just saw a camel with a hat." And I love
no one talks about the fact that it can talk.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, Homer explains that he doesn't have any money. I mean, look at his clothes.
I don't know if that's going to work out here, Miles.
Yeah, so...
But,
they actually say he's going to have to... the script cuts out weird here again, but they actually say that like they're going to offer him... Or I think Homer like volunteers to work off the debt.
Well, I think, if I remember correctly, the Colonel says he's going to have to work off the debt, but then Homer's like, "Can I work too?"
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. And Tech's like, "I don't know. You going to get drunk and start a lot of trouble?"
"Sure, anything you want."
"All right, then. See you tomorrow at 6 a.m. And you're going to work like you've never worked before."
And then Bart and Homer are both like, "Woohoo!" and high-five each other because they get to be carnies.
Yeah, it's like they're living their dream. And in fact, we missed a line that it wasn't in the script that we have available, but at one point, Bart and Homer are like kind of fantasizing about how great the Carny life would be, and Bart says like, "Yeah, it's too bad you're tied down with a wife and family, otherwise we could hit the road."
Well, that comes up in a little bit when they're working the booth. Yeah, so we'll get there.
Right on. There's actually kind of a really fun little animation sequence here where we see the sunrise hit the carnival, and you can kind of see like the conditions that the carnies live in. Because, like, for instance, the ring toss booth actually converts into a bedroom, like with fold down beds for Cooter and Spud.
Yeah, it's not the most glamorous of lives, Miles.
Well, and for breakfast, Cooter's pointing out, "Son, if you don't finish your cotton candy, you won't get your snow cone."
Ah, heck.
But right then, Homer and Bart walk up, and immediately Cooter gets very defensive.
"Hey, you lost your money fair and square. I didn't scam nobody."
"You put your stick down. We're here to work."
"Starting today, we're carnies, just like you."
"Well, in that case, let me show you how I scammed you."
That's fantastic.
Right away, Bart is upset because he's having to pick up a large amount of poop from a very tiny horse.
After having to eat some caramel from a barf bucket.
Oh, yeah, they said they just marked it that way, but that's such a disgusting bit. They're having caramel apples, and Cooter's like, "Put some more apples in the caramel." But yeah, it says barf on the side of it for sure.
But, like, after they tell him that they just do that to keep people from stealing it, Homer goes over and drinks some of it to test it, and he's like, "Yep, they're telling the truth." You can see it all over his face. Oh.
Tex has another opportunity for them. They're going to play Geeks in the Freak Show. All they have to do is bite the heads off of a live chicken and take a bow.
Bart?
Nope. Go on, give it a try. Big smiles now.
Bart, do I like chicken?
Does it matter?
I guess not.
But just in the nick of time, saving them from having to be a part of the freak show, Cooter and Spud both have to leave for their AA meeting. So Tex has Homer and Bart fill in working the ring toss game for him.
But then it cuts back where Bart's like, "Oh, phew," and he pulls the chicken away from him. And when it pans to Homer, Homer put the chicken in like...
He's the other way around.
Yeah, where just the head was sticking out of his mouth.
He put his entire body in his mouth, yeah. But they put the live chickens back in the cage and they move on.
And he says something about, "Buddy, you're the luckiest chicken in the world."
Cooter and Spud are explaining the mechanics of the game, showing that the rings won't fit over the blocks of the prizes that people actually want. And really all you have to do is do anything you can to attract customers, like make fun of them or use sweet talk, or you could just use outdated lingo.
From the 1930s is what they say,
Yeah.
which is kind of what Bart always does. Like
That's
he always
true.
has. Yeah, I always like that. And Bart even goes, like Rube?
Now you're on the trolley. And we can see that Homer's on the lookout for so-called pigeons like himself the day before, and he immediately finds probably the worst target or mark that you could, somebody who is clearly a swindler himself.
Let's get that guy over there, Miles.
But then Principal Skinner walks by, and he has Agnes on his arm, and this is when Bart kind of takes over by seeing a opportunity. Hey, High Pockets, win something for your girlfriend?
And even Agnes is like, oh!
She's very moved by it, yeah.
All right, Simpson, be honest with me. Is it actually possible to win this game?
If I like you, it is.
Hot dog, let's go!
Wouldn't Skinner automatically know that he's not in that camp?
But then the bit wouldn't work.
Oh, man. So Skinner takes a stab at it. He hands over his cash. He's throwing rings, and of course they're bouncing off because the game is rigged. But Agnes is just sitting there yelling, "You're failing, Seymour! What is it about you and failure?"
Oh, and that's when this gets really dark.
He switches. He has 2 rings remaining. And instead of going for the lamp, he switches for the Bowie knife. But he misses both of those too.
Yep.
Immediately, Bart's very proud because he feels like they're natural-born carnies. I mean, this is where he says, if we weren't tied down with a family...
Yeah, we should start our own game, where people throw ducks at balloons and nothing's the way it seems.
How would that work?
Nothing's the way it seems, Miles.
That's the way it works. That's true.
And I really enjoy this bit.
This is a wonderful interaction. Chief Wiggum actually walks up to the booth that has Bart and Homer in it. I hate to interrupt you, fun boy. I hate to interrupt your fun, boys, but I got a few complaints that your game is crooked.
And how?
Gee, I hate to close you down. Maybe we can reach a understanding here.
I understand.
Hey, Dad, I think he wants a...
Not now, son. Daddy's talking to a policeman.
Let me put it this way. I'm, looking for my friend, Bill. Have you seen any Bills around here?
No. He's Bart.
Listen carefully and watch me wink as I speak, okay?
Okay.
The guy I'm really looking for, wink, is Mr. Bribe. Wink, wink.
It's a ring toss game.
All right, I'm shutting this game down. This is such a good
I always
interaction.
love that.
Yeah, it's such a good interaction, and then the way they come back to it later in the episode is also just wonderful.
But then Cooter and Spud came back from their AA meeting already.
Right as the tow truck is actually hauling the ring toss booth entirely away, and Cooter's immediately upset. Like, what happened? What are they doing with our game?
They shut us down.
Why didn't you try to bribe them?
The opportunity never came up.
And the Carnies actually sit down on a pig and are miserable because that was their entire livelihood. That was everything they own. That was everything they know. And Homer is actually moved in this moment. He's upset at this family's loss and what they're going through. So he has an idea, and he actually invites both Cooter and Spud to live with them at their home until they get back on their feet.
Because if a Carny can wind up homeless, it can happen to anyone.
This is actually one of my favorite jokes here as well, because we cut over immediately to the Simpsons' home where we see Lisa and Marge sitting at the table, and Marge just has this huge shudder, like, ugh!
Why did you shudder just now, Mom?
I don't know. I love that how in tune they are, that Marge just has a feeling that Homer is doing something terrible. And that moment actually brings us to the end of our second act. We're going to go ahead and move right into our third act. I do feel like this episode is slightly tilted towards the third act quite a bit, but I don't know. It's actually right on pace. There's 9 pages of script, and we're on page 6 right now, so it seems actually pretty well balanced.
Yeah, there just might be more like quick dialogue in the last act, or maybe this script's kind of weird. Maybe it's marked in the wrong spot. Who knows?
Also possible for sure.
But we're gonna bring it all to you either way.
And right off the bat in Act 3, we see that both Cooter and Spud are making themselves quite at home. In fact, Cooter has his bare feet up on the Simpsons coffee table, and I love Marge is like, let me get you a coaster for those feet.
I like when Spud's looking around and he's like, it must have taken you years to win all this stuff.
Yeah, like that's the only method to like decorate your home.
Yeah.
Marge actually pulls Homer aside to talk to him about his decision. How long are these rouseabouts going to be staying here?
Oh, it won't be long. Once their resume gets out there, they'll have all kinds of offers. The older one can pull out his left eye.
And you actually see a glass eyeball like rolling into the kitchen. Ooh.
Little help?
Actually, later in the evening, though, it seems like the Cooters, I guess, Cooter and Spud. I don't know, but I guess that's their last
name. It's
the
the Cooters.
I don't know.
Yeah, because it'll say that eventually.
In the mailbox.
Yep.
Well, they're actually entertaining the family, and it seems like maybe they're not as bad as Marge initially thought they might be. She's actually asking about their history and asks how long have they been in the traveling amusement industry.
Oh, hail! The Cooters have been Carnies ever since we came here in 1620, clinging to the side of the Mayflower. What?
And Bart actually gives his mom a hug here, and I actually really like this bit, but I really like it because of just how off the animation looks. Bart actually like disclasps Marge's pearls and steals them, and when there's like a brief second where you see Marge without her pearls, and it looks very like obvious and apparent. It's interesting because you're so used to seeing her drawn with pearls.
Yeah, it almost feels like evil to not see her with the pearls on.
I don't know if I go that far, but like we've talked about how weird it is when we see her with white pearls instead of red, but when they're entirely missing, it's just weird.
I feel like a piece of her is missing.
The piece that apparently keeps her from being evil in your
mythology.
No,
I didn't mean evil. I felt like the act was evil, like because it clearly was, but it almost feels like she's being. It's gonna get weird. I almost feel like it's provocative when she's not wearing her pearls. Like
interesting.
It makes me feel weird when I see that. Like she's almost being undressed in a metaphorical way, and I'm like, that's not Marge. Give her pearls back.
Well, good news for you, Richie. There are websites dedicated to just that very thing. So
But I said it didn't feel good.
I'll fill you in on that later.
Okay.
I like though Bart's like, yeah, Spud taught me that, and Marge is immediately like, oh, that's such a great trick, Spud.
Now, who's the filthy sleazebag, Abe? Oh, no, not yet.
That's right, yeah, we almost there, but the Cooters actually have a moment where they're like saying like, wow, you guys have been so great. I wish there was some sort of way that we could repay you. And Cooter and Spud have a moment to chat before Cooter remembers, hey, you folks ever been on a glass-bottom boat ride? Because we just happen to have some tickets.
Ooh, what a nice surprise. This is so generous of you, Cooter.
And that's when Homer kind of elbows Marge, but doesn't do it subtly at all. It's quite out loud. Now who's the filthy sleazebag, eh, Marge?
But we went over Cooter's trick that he did, Miles. Or we glossed over the trick that he did with the cigarette.
Oh, I forgot about that. You're totally right. He's when he's entertaining the family at the table, he's doing a little trick his granny taught him. But he's putting the cigarette into, like, first it's relatively normal because he, like, pushes it up his nose and out his mouth. I'm not saying that's normal, but you can see how that makes sense. But then he pushes it into his ear and pulls it out of his butthole.
And it's... I'm a child because that made me... I forgot that he pulls it out of his butt at the end of the first time I watched this, and that made me laugh pretty hard.
Well, and I also love that Bart's, like, immediately like, can you do that again?
Yeah, not for a couple hours.
So the Simpsons actually take off to use these complimentary glass bottom boat ride tickets. And this is another fun sequence because they're talking about like the wonders of the underwater world, but it's mostly trash and like shopping carts. And there's actually a canister of Little Lisa's slurry, which is the other callback I was referring to, as well as some nuclear waste.
But then you see the other ship, the Athena, at the bottom.
That ship went down last week with 88 souls aboard.
How did 88 people fit on that?
Well, and immediately Marge is like, I wonder what happened or how that how that tragedy could have occurred. And you can immediately cut to Homer and Bart taunting a shark who is like ramming it from underneath and cracking the glass.
Hey, come on, Sharky.
Yeah, you want a piece of this?
You call yourself the king of the jungle.
That's exactly what they call themselves. On the way home, the family is talking about how great the Cooters are. Everyone's like, I was wrong about the Cooters. They're the nicest of all the transients you've ever brought home.
And Marge is like looking at the floorboard of the car going, oh, I wish we had a glass bottom car. Think of all the stuff we're missing.
Yes, all that asphalt. But just about the time they're deciding how great the Cooters are, they notice that the key is no longer working on their door and something's wrong. And that's when Bart actually reads the mailbox and sees that the Simpsons have been crossed out and the Cooters have been written in Sharpie.
And all the windows are boarded up.
Immediately, they start banging on the door and demanding answers, but the Cooters tell them that it's their house now, just tell them where the spare sheets are and get off their property.
Well, at least they can go rely on Chief Wiggum to help them get these transients out of the house.
This is so great, because at the police station, we see how deep the corruption runs. Well, look who's here, Mr. No Bribe. Well, sure will help ya. Just sit down and wait for Detective Like I Give a Damn.
Thank you so much.
Lisa has to point out that, Dad?
Honey, Daddy's waiting for the detective.
So that's obviously not going to go anywhere. It seems like the entire family is actually having to camp out in Bart's treehouse. Marge is even scavenging for breakfast. She's just picking off the red berries from the tree that grows there.
Bart, you're brushing your teeth with my twig.
So, I let you use my leaves. Inside, though, we can see that the Cooters are actually having the time of their life, living in luxury, and they're wearing, the Simpsons clothes. Cooters dressed like Homer. He's like, look at me, I'm a millionaire.
Wow, Dad, you look like James Bond. And this is, when they're in the treehouse, Homer is like, they better not be sitting in my ass groove. It took me years to get that thing shaped. Yeah, super important.
Have we already gotten to the point where they're thinking of ways to get? I think we haven't, but they already have a fire in a barrel inside the house to keep warm, and they're deciding what they should use to fuel the fire: the photo album "Precious Moments" or "Treasured Memories."
Which one should I toss?
The next day, we see Homer trying to get dressed, and he takes a tragic fall out of the treehouse.
And then the whole family's in shock, oh my gosh!
But Homer's just stupid gravity.
And walks back in there. And then there's so many good bits in this episode, but I think this one might be my favorite.
Where he falls out?
No, with the conversation that takes place after he's back in the treehouse.
Gotcha. Marge is basically demanding, we can't just give up our house. There's got to be a way to get these guys out of there.
I say we set fire to the house. Kill them that way.
We don't want to kill them, Bart. We just want our home back.
And then Lisa chimes in. Well, if we did set fire to the house...
No fires!
And then Homer goes, I've got it!
No fires!
Aww.
I Marge doesn't even give Homer the idea to start his idea. She just immediately knows.
But she was right.
But there must be a way to outsmart them, Marge says.
You can't outsmart carnival folk. They're the cleverest folks in the world. Just look at the way they sucker regular folk with those crooked games. That's it! Fire! And then Marge looks at him real angry, and so he goes, Homer's got an idea.
We see that they have a plan, and when they actually go and knock on their own front door, though Cooter off screen, we hear him say, Cooter residents.
I've got a proposition for you, Cooter.
Yeah, I'm listening.
One game of ring toss. If I can throw this hula hoop onto the chimney, you'll give us our house back. If I miss, I'll sign the deed over to you.
Homer, no!
Oh, you'll never make it, Dad.
But Cooter actually steps out and he asks, basically, we'll own this house legitimately if you don't make it, and they agree to the terms.
Miles, do you know how much you pay for a chimney?
How much do you pay for a chimney, Rich?
Nothing. It's on the house.
Ah, beautiful, man. Yes, beautiful.
Sorry, continue.
Gotta have those dad jokes, man. Gotta have those dad jokes. So, basically, they all stand outside on the front door. Homer has this hula hoop, and he's trying to account for the wind.
I love the animation in this with Homer in this moment.
Right as he's about to throw, he just yells out, "Now!" And the Simpsons family run into the home and slam the door.
And it's like, it's so cool because the Carnys actually try to run in as well, but like the Simpsons get in right before then and basically slam the door in their faces. So,
and Spud's me like, "Hey, that Simpson, or they just ran into the house. That Homer fella grifted you good, Dad."
Well, there's no shame in being beaten by the best.
But he didn't seem like...
We were beaten by the best, boy.
Keep your story straight, son.
Yeah.
So the Simpsons celebrate and they start hosing down the inside of the home to clean everything off, which, yeah, that's questionable, but also hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately Homer starts to feel bad because he looks out the window and he's like, "Oh, look at him just standing there with no place to go. Poor guys. Hey, what if we let him stay here for just a few days?"
That's when the rest of the family's like, do something. And Marge goes like, "Homer, over here." And she starts patting his ass groove on the couch.
And Homer actually takes a seat, and it seems like it's going to take a little bit of effort to reshape his ass groove. And I actually really like the ending here. That's where we see the end of Act 3 and the credits start to roll. But instead of just the Simpsons theme, we get the Groove Me Baby song, like the, "Oh, suck you, now groove me, baby." But Homer is like grunting over the top of this, like trying to fix his groove.
Suck it to me, mama.
Just a little more. To the left, maybe. So he's putting a lot of effort into this thing, and it's just a really funny pairing where Homer's grunting fits so well over this groovy music.
Oh, yeah.
Groove me, baby. And that brings us to the end of Bart Carny. Richie, is there anything else that you or that book of yours want to say about this episode?
I said this at the top of our podcast spectacular episode here, even though it's not a spectacular, but I very much enjoyed this episode. I feel like it's such a simple concept, like not really a lot is going on necessarily. They just go to a carnival and then they're outside of their house for most of this episode. But like, it's so much fun, and this is one of the rare times where like I wanted to rewatch this episode multiple times. Not that I don't always want to, but like I sit down and take my notes seriously for this, and usually like when I think about it for a hard time, I'm like, I'm good. I've seen this episode so many times that like I don't need to see it again. But this one, especially with us pushing our day back a few times, I was like looking forward to rewatching this one because I do my notes after work and it's like 4 or 5 in the morning, but like I was laughing out loud with this one the entire time. Like this is just complete fun all around. The one thing I do want to point out, which I will give IMDb credit for again, is I did not realize that Cooter's got a bad left eye, a fake glass eye, and he was using it to look out the peephole a little bit when he was mocking Homer when he stole the house. So, I mean, he was using both eyes, but I think there was one point where he squinted his right eye a little bit, and it's like, you can't see out of that left eye. What are you doing?
That's funny. I didn't catch that. You're absolutely right. That's a good note. I'll also say that on IMDb as well, they point out that the carnival in this episode is actually based on the Eastern States Exposition, which is currently, at the time that this was updated, known as the Big E Fair.
Ooh.
But the only other thing I really want to talk about is just Jim Varney and kind of his legacy on, not just in this episode, but in life in general. Because Jim Varney was most known for his beloved dumb character Ernest. And again, we talked about that a little bit at the top of the show about how great and how memorable those movies were and how much we enjoyed them as a kid. But Jim Varney was actually a very talented actor. He won many awards early in his life in like drama clubs and like dramatic performances and things of that nature. And he just happened to create this character who I think in many ways it kind of overshadowed the rest of his acting abilities, but that wasn't like who he was per se as a person. That was just somebody that he made, and I think it's really impressive and something that should just be noted. It's also really sad. I didn't know this until literally right before we started recording. I did not realize how young Jim Varney was when he passed away, because he was born June 15th, 1949, and he passed away in February 10 of 2000, which means that he was only 50 years old. And that's just too young for anybody, but he was also a chain smoker his entire life, and he did pass away of lung cancer.
So that anniversary for us, it's Valentine's Day today, so that was just a few days ago.
Yeah, just right around the corner, just a couple days ago. You're absolutely right. But yeah, so I think Jim Varney does a great job in this episode. I honestly think it's like a perfect role for him as a person in so many ways. I think that it was a really, really good fit, and I believe it was Tress MacNeille that played Spud, who they did a really good job working together. So all across the board, I was just very impressed with Jim Varney in this episode, and it was really, as a kid, his voice was so memorable that as soon as he talks, you know it. Like, I don't know that I knew it was Jim Varney when I was a kid, but I damn sure knew it was Ernest. Yeah,
and that was very exciting, and recognizing that, but you're right, it was an absolute perfect role for him.
Yeah, 100%. But that is going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly. As always, we cannot thank you enough for downloading, liking, subscribing, sharing, all that bullshit podcasting things that we ask you to do, and especially those of you that support us on Patreon. You really help us out so much, and it means an absolute ton to us. Please make sure you follow Richie the Wiz Kid at thewiz_kid23, and I am at Mr. Most Days Off pretty much everywhere.
But wait! You must also, and more importantly, follow Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
And make sure you come back and join us again next week. We've got another episode that I'm super excited about. It might be one of the highest, it might be the highest rated episode. No, it's not. I just found one that's higher. But it's a very highly rated episode.
In our hearts.
And I'm super excited to review it. It is The Joy of Sect.
Oh, Miles, you know what would make that podcast better? I've got it! Fire!
No fire, Richie.
Oh.
And until next time, be cromulent to each other.